I believe that every movie adheres to the 29-point story structure. No matter if the writer outlines first or dives in blind, the end product follows the same 29 beats. Fight Club is my exhibit Q. 22 years of commercial nostalgia has blunted the edgelord status of this old drama. It now acts as a stylized time capsule for the Gen X identity crisis amid capitalism's societal overreach. The visual effects still hold up, the soundtrack still kicks so much ass, yet its cautionary take on blind allegiance has long since been mocked, forgotten, and emulated. David Fincher prioritized character work over the logistics of Fight Club / Project Mayhem progress, and in doing so, he created a cinematic experience that transcends age, social class, and ideology. The secret to its universality is the 29-point story structure. Let's begin. A tight focus on the core elements of Jack's personality, inner conflict, and situation. The protagonist suffers from sleepless nights and pointless days with no professional care. His foray into emotional support groups provides his only respite from his daily delirium. The where, why, and how of Jack's existence in this world, with a focus on why he doesn't quite fit in. The protagonist finds peace among like-minded people, even though he's faking every condition. Marla's flippant dishonesty reflects his lie, forcing him to reconcile the depravity of his emotional outlet. A singular event that's never happened before, and is destined to lead Jack's journey away from his status quo. The protagonist confronts Marla, and they connect. An examination of what's different in light of the something new, what's the same in spite of it in relation to the status quo. The protagonist has reverted to his sleepless state, and he agrees to sacrifice half of his group support stash to rid himself of Marla. He long ago reconciled with the depravity of his job, but finds the pretentious nature of modern society to be the irreconcilable bane of his life. The discovery that things are less than ideal, or an exploration of how badly things are. The protagonist interacts with Tyler Durden for the first time, marking a new milestone in his spiraling mental state. His apartment blows up while he's away on business. Characters dedicate their effort to a specified goal, which is smaller in scope than the primary objective of the third act. The protagonist needs a place to stay and hits up his imaginary friend, naturally. The teachings of Tyler Durden sink in as he wallows in his own existential misery. A brief checklist of the story elements needed for the second act. Clever shenanigans, reckless abandon in plain sight, the interplay between Tyler Durden and the protagonist, and the new base of operations. The singular event that launches Jack's journey into the wild jungle of the second act, also called an oh shit moment. Their drunken brawling gains an audience, and the origins of Fight Club are cemented. Oh shit. Characters must learn all new rules and expectations distinct to this adventure. Drunken brawling draws larger crowds and willing participants, forcing the arbitration of rules. A lack of structured entertainment forces the protagonist to entertain himself and balances his work duties with a newfound nihilism. Characters showcase their ability to grow in the areas this adventure requires, typically through external means. Fight Club grows and prospers. It becomes the secret identity for a growing number of like-minded yet displaced men. Characters face legitimate and understandable reasons to deviate from their stated convictions, agendas, or desires. The protagonist passes his test by keeping Marla at a distance, as per their agreement. But Tyler is his own man, with his own perspective of the world. He brings Marla in closer. An escalation of problems that vex the characters. The protagonist deals with boundary issues in a way that tests even his own understanding of the physical universe. But no matter how much space he gives Tyler, he's always within earshot of Marla's sex screams. His day job begins to fight back, and the police begin tugging on some awkward strings. Characters evolve internally by utilizing everything they've gathered and learned. The protagonist channels Tyler, and soon plays apprentice to his alchemical shenanigans. Journey-weary characters reconcile the reality of their ongoing situation with who they were in the first act. The protagonist tries to use support group tactics to deal with his agony, but Tyler forces him to remain in the present, in the now, to stare at pain rather than recoil. He even admits it. His voice gives rise to Tyler's words. A singular event that strikes at Jack's core conflict. The protagonist thinks Marla is Tyler's girl, while Marla thinks he is Tyler. And they're both right. And there's no turning back from here. Characters find a safe harbor that also provides needed answers for both external and internal conflicts. The protagonist discovers that Fight Club has been growing and has brought men of all displacement together. Tyler proselytizes like a self-pitying messiah, bringing those displaced men into one frame of mind. The clarified objective is realized in part or in whole, though it's meaningless without the completion of the primary objective. Tyler secures the basement home of Fight Club, but the cult-like growth has already moved beyond its simple origins. The teachings of Tyler Durden become actionable homework assignments, but the endgame for ramping up these shenanigans seems to be open-ended. An existential conflict that wounds Jack's sense of self, worldly identity, or his journey. The protagonist attempts to blackmail his boss, which immediately backfires. He chips away more of the crumbling wall that separates him from Tyler, deliberately kicking his own ass instead of imagining it's someone else. Fight Club obtains the resources to keep up with its rapid expansion. Jack's undeniable win, typically in direct connection to the rebirth. Tyler's anarchy begins to take form, to inspire through forced nihilism. He's a chaos demigod. For good? He manages to keep the protagonist from discussing him, and he tyrannically recruits a militia of like-minded men to do his messianic bidding. A grand loss directly connected to the character's newfound inability to quit the journey. The protagonist is the last to find out about Project Mayhem, signaling how long Tyler's been active, and discovers that he's no longer Tyler's star pupil. He, just like Fight Club, has moved forward. The protagonist doesn't handle it very well, in full view. A thematic freefall tied directly to the heavy price. The protagonist has a screaming match with Tyler, in front of two loyal soldiers who can plainly see the depth of his psychosis. The crescendo of his manic episode peaks in a nasty car wreck, and he blacks out. The protagonist eventually wakes again to find his home is the eye of controlled chaos. A singular event that seemingly robs Jack of his success. The protagonist breaks his promise to chaos demigod Tyler Durden and mentions him by name to Marla. Characters cannot return to their starting personas and must turn to face the primary objective. The golem that is Project Mayhem begins to think for itself, to create its own identity. The protagonist tumbles down the rabbit hole of deja vu, hunting for his imaginary friend. Characters move towards the climax while utilizing the major swings and sneaky misdirections of the story. The Robert Paulson chant leads the protagonist to someone who will finally tell him what's up. He is Mr. Durden, as confirmed by Marla. Then Tyler comes along and explains the story from his omnipresent perspective. Jack's final confrontation with the antagonistic force. The protagonist pieces together Project Mayhem's end game, but can't get around Tyler's omnipresent army. He scrambles to protect Marla from Tyler's not-so-subtle threat, then confesses the entirety of the plan to the police. Tyler's police. Finally, he faces off in a game of wits over 400 gallons of nitroglycerin against his imaginary friend. The singular event where Jack's place in the status quo is finally confronted. In his greatest act of defiance, the protagonist disobeys Tyler's commands, rejecting what the demigod of chaos wanted him to become: compliant. The direct aftermath of the climax. Irreparably split down the middle, both personalities fight over control of the body. Literally. The consequences of the climax in relation to other characters in the status quo. Marla is carried back, kicking and screaming, her life all but over. Tyler states his intentions to survive long past Project Mayhem, but the protagonist wrestles back control by embracing the chaos beyond self-preservation. A tight focus on Jack's contrast from the opening. The protagonist demonstrates comfortable control over the hierarchy of a terrorist organization. Then he stands tall before everything he's accomplished, with the love of a good woman and the gaping hole in his face. And there you have it, my 17th example to support my argument that all movies follow the exact same story structure, regardless of how the writer approaches the craft. Fight Club lingered in most plot sequences for at least 5 minutes, using the 29-point story structure to deliver a coherent tale of someone who's increasingly unconscious. But does this darker version of Drop Dead Fred follow the same plot beats as the CGI-heavy culmination of the anti-hero cautionary tale, of the political origin story, of the baddest dude of the galaxy? Yes, it arguably does. Next on my docket, Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. Please subscribe to stay up to date with this and future videos, and please like and comment with your thoughts and reactions. I'll talk to you next time.